Next man come up, put a camera in my face, I'm gonna lock him down and jump on him, man. It's a few seconds, huh? Reach high, dig low, run far, stand tall, be brave, so you grow. Listen please to this prophecy. Change gon' come, like sea turning the tree. We know humanity. Cast your chains away. Live your life today.
Greetings and salutations, wonderful people. I think we have a wonderful discussion that we will have today. It's called Breaking Cycles. Now, if anybody knows, me and titles don't get along very well. So, I understand now when, what was it, Lauryn Hill, who was like, I just call it like a line in the song. Like, whatever, here it is, man. We can switch that and change it later on. But nonetheless, we are talking about breaking cycles. And ultimately, you heard the song, grow. So first and foremost, let me go to the Chizat, give it Shizat out to Abba Raz Kush. Peace. Emma Yakira, Akoti Yafe, Master Menelek, Aki Rahim, Akoti Yamina. And where we at over here? I got Emanaya, got Top Tier, Sovereign Eats. Peace, peace, peace. Emma Aquia, peace to you all. Now, I'm going to start out. There was, which some of you know this, people use this all the time, which I'm going to use a couple different ones of stories that there was a lady who ultimately was cooking a roast. And when she was she would cut the ends off of both sides of the roast, right? And eventually she asked her mother, she said, well, why do we cut the ends off the roast? And something that she said was, well, you know what? I never really asked. I ultimately just cut it. So, because that's what your grandmother did. So like, go ask your grandmother. And went and asked grandmother, and grandmother said, well, you know what? Ultimately, I just did it because that's what I was taught. But eventually what she ended up finding out was that the ends of the roast were only cut because it didn't fit in the pan, right? But ultimately there was a cycle there that needed to be broken, or maybe it didn't even need to be broken, but somebody had to take a look at it, and somebody had to examine it and say, you know what, why am I doing this? Let me take a look at this. And that's why I always go back to Chief's of segment that he did with motivation and motion, right? There's a difference between being motivated by doing the things that you're doing and someone simply going through the motions. And it finally takes somebody to say, why do I think about certain things so much? Why do I, think about money so much? Why do I think about sex so much? Why do I think these things on a consistent and day out basis? Why am I doing certain things on a consistent and day out basis? And it would cause one now to ultimately become studious. Now, that is in the Anu way. It's one of the required qualities. It's something that we're going to touch on a little bit today, but nonetheless, it requires one to be studious. It requires one to become a student. It requires one to become inquisitive about, you know what, why are certain things the way that they are? Why do people have certain reactions that they have? Why does it seem like things are on autopilot, or things are becoming programmed the way that they are, to almost have people have reactions like robots? And these robots, ultimately, you can tell, smile, now get mad, now get happy, right? Of posting certain things on social media, or posting certain things on TV that ultimately start to control and manipulate one's emotions, of saying that, you know what, this is what you should be happy about today. This is what you should get mad about today as a collective, as a unit. This is what okay, now go dormant. You can go back to doing what you were doing. You can go back to relaxing, and you can go back to doing all of those other things. But nonetheless, it would cause one to say, you know what, why does it seem like there's a collective that's going on that, somebody is telling me what I should start to invest my energy and my attention into? And it's going to cause one to become studious, right? And when one becomes studious, that when one can start to look inside of something and blow it up from the inside, right? Of saying, hold on now, this has been going on one way. I've been cutting the ends off of a roast for a particular time. Now let me start to do something different, right? Because now I have a new set of information that ultimately I am working with, and willfully I can start to put myself around better people, right? So I think one now starts to take a look at, if we go back to the beginning, there's always this age-old argument that people have of nature versus nurture, right? And I think this will make for a great discussion today because I would like to hear what you guys think about nature versus nurture. Where do you sit on the side of, do you think that people are inherently bad or good? Like, are they just born that way? Or do you think that from nurturing, that people now can take on different habits? People can take on different outlooks of life and things like that. Or are you on the side of the fence of, hey, what's going to be is what's going to be? And ultimately, there's no change in that. So when you get a chance, and I already know how some of y'all will do, so you probably won't say anything. But nonetheless, I'm seeing it, and if not, I'm just going to keep flowing right along. But willfully, some have maybe a stance on that. And if you do, then certainly I see some of you I'm going to bring in here as speakers. But you can put it in the chat, or some of you can come up here and speak. I hear you, Master Miller. Okay, cool. And then I see one more I'll bring up. I don't know if you raised your hand. Just raise it again because I might have missed it. But nonetheless, the question that we are going to speak on first and foremost is nature versus nurture. Where do you stand? Where are you at with the nature versus nurture discussion? Are you one that says, you know what, through nurturing and upbringing and environment, that one can start to change the outlook of one's trajectory? One can change one's outlook of how they view other people and change their outlook of just change their outlook, period. Or is it one's nature to say, you know what, that's just the way that they're going to be. They're just nasty, evil, and they're always going to be like that. So where do you stand with that? If anybody has anything they would like to add in there.
Peace, brother.
Peace, Master Miller.
Yeah, man. It's funny, my brother and I went for a run today.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the run, we were headed back to his place, and we were talking about how our bodies are pretty similar. But they have their nuances too. So I'm a little taller than he is. So even though we may have similar strengths and even similar weaknesses, I'm a little taller than he is. So of course I'm going to have different kinds of weaknesses because my body is different. I eat differently. We have different habits. So ultimately we start off very similar, but we kind of veered off. And we started speaking even on the nurture aspect because I was better at him than at video games,
Mm-hmm.
but he was more cunning than I was. I was really naive, when I was young. So, for instance, we would be playing Mortal Kombat, and I would be winning, right? So I win the first round, no problem. Then he would do something slick, like, oh, hold on, let me see something. And he would beat my character within an inch of his life. And then he was like, all right, let's go. And I had to learn that people can be dishonest. I didn't have that in me. So I think it's both. You can be born super pure. You have a very trusting nature, but over time, because of your experiences, you can react to those experiences and start to formulate a newer identity or a newer approach to things, which could, be beneficial or harmful. And on the flip side, you could start off like as a jerk. Just as a child, you're a jerk, and you grow up to be a jerk adult. But through experiences, you become less of a jerk. And you even through counseling, jerks that may be coming up, you learn to be a little bit more noble because you realize, oh, okay, I used to be like this person, and I even have more room to grow. So I think nature and nurture plays a part in it. But people like to flip-flop based on what suits them. This is just how I am. Or was raised this way. You know, whichever one suits them is nature or nurture based on their foolishness. You know,
Right.
so it could be real slippery. People can be slick with it. Or people can really look at it and be like, okay, even though I was born in these circumstances, I don't have to be that way. Or even though I come from this stock and these genetics, I don't have to be this way. Or even though I started off, you know, trying to make people eat dirt and flushing people's heads in the toilets. I don't have to stay that way. You know, I can change from moment to moment. But like you were bringing up with the motivation versus motions piece, you know, if I'm just going through the motions, then I'll probably be more inclined to lean on the slippery side, where I'm like, well, this is just the way I am, and I'm just going through the motions.
Right.
Or if I'm dealing with motivation, it's like, nah, something inside of me is like, all right, that one was. That's a little too much. I've gone too far. I crossed the line. I need to change my ways, you know. And the motivation from within can let you know, okay, it's time for a change. Let's change, you know. And you can regulate yourself that way, or get around just better people, you know, and start letting them rub off on you. Pause. But yeah, that's what I think.
Hey, I understand getting around better people. An environment. It's one that if one wants to ultimately say, you know what, this is why I'm going to now validate the way that I am, is because I was just born this way and there was nothing that I can do. So I can see why one would say, I'm going with nature, because that's just my nature. It's just what I do, or what I does, right? Whereas somebody would say, hold on now, you're nurturing, and what you would be around would ultimately start to influence you. So let's take a look at, we got Emaniah says, I would say it depends on will. Some can be nurtured to change, but if one has moved a certain way far too long, they may be stuck and unwilling to change. It may be easier for children to be nurtured into certain behaviors, ways that may not come natural, versus an adult holding on to what makes them feel a certain way or something they are used to doing, and not change their behaviors because it may be too much effort and work. All right. Softer Gertrude says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and he is old. He will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6. Thank you so much for that. I don't know if Abba Ross Kush, if you just want to say something, I'm muted. If not, then I'm gonna just keep rolling. All right, go ahead, brother.
Peace, all.
Peace.
Yes, indeed. So, I would say that there is a combination, you know, in my opinion, of both. Takes me back to a segment that, you know, Chief did, speaking on, you know, creation, or being created versus being made, you know. So if we just think about the creation of being, right? The first, there's a thought, you know what I mean? And so that thought then gets put in it gets manifested into a seed, you know, into a physical seed, you know, which is then implanted, you know, into the womb, you know, to be nurtured and grown, right? Until, you know, until it's, you know, birthed out of the canal, right? So when we talking about the beginning, you know, as far as the creation, you know, we all were created, you know, in for a specific purpose and for a specific reason, you know, and then we, you know, when we manifested in this physical form, then, you know, that's when, you know, the essential changes, you know, are made, right? Or, you know, we can be shaped into many different things, whether good or bad, you know, however you may perceive good to be and however you may perceive bad to be, you know. So, my thoughts on, like, the nurturing the nurturing part, I should say, is that, we have to look at, like what is it that we came from, right? Like the lineage, how did our parents, how were we raised, as children, you know, you know what I mean? Like, even so, like, even when we full term, did we come out early? Did we come out late? Than the standard, process of pregnancy, right? All of those things play a factor. Some people, some mothers, when they're pregnant, do drugs. Some mothers, when they're pregnant, go through serious issues. You know what I mean? So, like, and when the child comes out, they have serious, health issues. I've seen that, even with relatives where, the mother had, serious health issues, and when the child came out, they also had serious health issues. So that nurturing, doesn't just happen at birth, but even before birth, even in that carrying process, that child is being made into something, with every bite that their mother, may take, with every sip that their mother may take, whether it's of alcohol or of water, nourishment, coconut water, excuse me, or, whatever it may be, both, however your morality, states good is good and bad is bad, right? So, but, all of that plays a factor into, the development of a person, of course, the development of the child as well, raised with both parents, raised with one parent, raised in what environment, were they raised in the suburbs, were they raised in in the hood, were they raised, amongst community, were they raised, in isolation, like all of those things play a factor into how one, is developed, and how we perceive, life to be, and so I really think that there's a lot of variables, that are involved into the temperament, that we are that we currently have, that has to be considered. And as Master Menelek said, we can be groomed. We can certainly be groomed, one way or another, into a criminal, or we could be groomed into, a successful football player or basketball player or whatever, so there's a lot of variables, I think, that goes into, where a person is, temperament wise, attitude wise, and how they perceive reality to be, that, falls into, where they currently are. So that's my answer. I'm sorry for being a little long.
Hey, no, I can dig it. I appreciate that. So what I'm gathering is you're leaning more towards the nurturing side than you would say the nature side, right?
I would say it is a combination of both, but yeah, it is. I think that a lot of it is. I would say, yeah, it would be mostly nurture. Mostly nurturing, because there's so many variables that come into play that affects us. Including trauma. The traumas that we go through, and even traumas that our ancestors or parents, grandparents go through as well.
All right, I can dig it. I can dig it. This is I appreciate these are some great answers, man. Goodness gracious. Emma Aquia says, I think nature has to do with what we instinctively do that may not be learned, and nurturing is something learned. Yet nurturing can change who you naturally are. It makes me think of children. Children, we are the world. Here we go. All right, cool. So this next piece, I'm going to do my best to explain, but I have also added videos in the description below of this video. So if you are on Clubhouse, you will need to look on the YouTube channel in a New Life Global, and you'll see some of these videos that I'm talking about that will explain it better. If we still can't figure it out, we'll go to Chief or another our new member, and we're gonna get this, you know. But willfully, I'm gonna do my best to explain kind of what's in there a little bit. But again, the video is in there, so I want you to definitely go check it out so you can kind of follow along to see where my follow the bouncing ball per se. All right, so one of the videos, it talks about things being hereditary, and it starts to go into chromosomes, right? And one inside of their body has 23 chromosomes. Now you get one from your mother and one from your father. So ultimately it will make 46. And the 23rd one, which women have two of the same, which is why they call it XX. And then a guy would have like this, something, which why you would call it an XY. But again, those will be hereditary, or those will be passed down from generation to generation. And which is always interesting because when you ask somebody how old they are, you really have to see how old their blood is, right? And it's like, okay, well, how old are you means how old is your mother, and then how old is her mother, and so on and so forth, because that's ultimately what is getting passed down from generation to generation. Now, what's inside the blood, what we call chromosome. Now, some call somatic cells or diploid, meaning there are two sets of chromosomes, and gametes or sex cells are haploid, meaning they only have one set of chromosomes. So when you think of one set, it's like the egg, right? Or the sperm. You got one job. You're going to skate the one song, and you're going to skate the one song only, right? Yeah, right? But now, inside of these chromosomes, you have what are called you'll see, again, go look to the video, because the video is going to be a little better at explaining this than I am. I'm just trying to pull it so we can get somewhere. And then there's like a W that you would have from your mother, and there's a W that you would have from your father, right? One might be big and one might be smaller. So ultimately one would kind of dominate the other, which they're called alleles. So the allele would be on the same point, the W here and the big W there, right? And one might say, and in the video, it just gives an example of this is why one might have darker wet earwax as opposed to dry earwax, right? But again, these are certain things that are expressed through now a phenotype of what you would see outwardly. Let me see this, or what you would see physically. So now, as whatever is encoded in these genes or encoded in these chromosomes now begins to express itself depending on what you got from your mother or your father. I'm giving you the shortened, condensed version. Again, go look at the video so you can get a better understanding of what I'm saying. All right. Now they have something called epigenetics. Okay. Now, epigenetics, or epi just means on top of. Okay. And then genetics are just your genes. So something now is what what scientists are trying to say is something is sitting on top of your gene. Now, what's sitting on top of your gene ultimately starts to say, it's either going to squeeze it. And what is it ultimately squeezing is a chromatin, right? Chromatin is a packaging for the cell, which is a combination of histones and DNA. Now, if you think about it, not saying that you haven't, but it almost would look like I don't know if you've ever used thread and a needle, but that thread has that little spindle on it, right? And then it's wrapped around it. Now, the epigenetic or the set of instructions that sits on top of your DNA, it either can constrict it where now it cannot read what's inside of it, or it will be open so now it's more free flowing, and now ultimately whatever is inside that the gene can be actually read and processed. So now the more it's constricted, the more that it might bring sickness, the more that it might bring some adverse problems to one's life, cancer, my sickness, just certain things that they might do. Whereas opposed to now, if it's now not as tight, then the gene, what can be read inside of that chromatin, which now one can read. So again, it's a set of instructions. So if we're looking at it, the epigenetic, or sits on top of the chromatin, is a set of instructions for the DNA. It's a small chemical tag which instructs your cells. Okay. Now, a couple of the things that were introduced in this video, which I think are pertinent to this conversation, is that now that begins from what Albert Ross Kush was speaking about and what's in created. Let me just say this, Chief, be going all the way in. Now, I'm not saying any of this to validate, but I'm just showing you what you're reading already and what's already been broken down for you. But again, I know and I understand that it's hard for you to accept what the work that he has put in. Some people like science and all that other, so we're just going to talk about it. All right, whatever. All right. So what was found though was that there was a study done in Sweden, and again, I want you to, I'm going to keep saying this, go watch these videos. There was a study that was done in Sweden where a gentleman overate and smoked. And what they found was that 2 generations from his seed, they had a shorter lifespan than because of some of the factors of what he did today. So the question, some of the things that I want to kind of point out though, what you do today matters. Because, and it's just like, oh, I'm just smoking a little weed, or oh, I'm just doing a little smoking a cigarette, or that is going to have an effect on your seed coming out. That's going to have an effect on their seed coming out, because now it's like a skin tag that is, or that little, again, chemical tag, which instructs your cells. So now how are you instructing your cells? Now, another study that was done was on mice, right? And on these mice, it was interesting because they had some obese mice that I guess that what they showed was that the offspring of these mice, they was going to see if that they can change some of these cells. Now, changing it just as in the environment. So now what they showed was that if the mouse had more nurturing aspects with their offspring, then it was shown that it would loosen the epigenetic, or the tag that sat on top of it, and they were less likely to have the same genetic disposition as the parent did. But then when they removed that nurturing aspect from it, then it was more likely to have the aspects of what the parent had. So now it was going to carry on that gene, or carry on that defective aspect, because now of the nurturing aspect that came in. So you're getting genes in the hereditary, some things that are inherited, but now can it be changed based on the way that somebody is brought up? Can it be based on what you are watching on TV, what you are ingesting with your environment, who you commune with in your community, who you sit around with on your airlights, all which we are going to point out and define today. But now I want to take it to dun, dun, dun. Let's go to the bang. Hygiene, right? And why are we going to hygiene? Because this is in the new way, hygiene. I just like when you actually sit and see the work that has been done and put in front of you, you just can't do anything but just, man. Golly. Work. What'd you say?
I said it makes
No, I'm talking about work, brothers. I'm talking about put that work in. Let's go, Chief. So in the I Knew way, you'll start to see what in the hygiene section, it says begins with how we bathe the insides of our body's temple. Our hygiene is a product of what we ingest and allow ourselves to be surrounded with. What are you ingesting on a day in and day out basis? And this begins, as Abu Raj Kush said, and you'll start to, even on the prenatal level of what is being consumed when that baby is in the gestation phase, right? What's being consumed that's helping that young baby develop. You'll even see this in the development of the psychology of the Black child, which Amos Wilson, Dr. Amos Wilson does a great job of actually breaking down too. So you should check that book out as well. But again, what type of prenatal care is being done that the mother now is ingesting? What type of relationship ultimately does the mother and father have that ultimately is being witnessed by the child? Now that is going to take us. That's going to take us to what's something called as the social learning theory. All right. And this is by Albert Bandura. All right. I think I said that right. A Canadian psychologist. And this is the social learning theory and what is called the Bobo doll. Now, that video has also been tagged up underneath in the description. So definitely when you get a chance, go check that out as well. So in that experiment, they had what was a blow-up doll. And they let the child see how the blow-up doll was being handled. So what they started to do was throw the doll up and down in the air. They began to punch the doll. They had arguments with the doll. All of these certain things that they started to show the child. Then what was found was when the child started to see that way that the doll was being handled, then they noticed something interesting. Which maybe it may not be as interesting to you as it is to me. I'm whatever. But they've noticed now that the child would reach for more violent toys. The child would do more violent things. So now, even if the child never knew what a gun was, it would reach for the gun because of now the experience that it witnessed that was right in front of them. So now, because because this doll was just getting hit, getting beat up and all of this, then now it started to be more violent. It started to reach for more violent toys when even the toys never were introduced to the child in the first place. But it began to just reach for them, and their language started to become more adverse and more violent because of what it witnessed and because of the environment and because of what it seen. So good. So good, right? So then the question goes back to, hygiene begins with how we bathe the insides of our body's temple. Our hygiene is a product of what we ingest and allow ourselves to be surrounded with. What are you allowing yourself to be surrounded with? What are you watching on TV that, oh yeah, you think that is innocuous, but it's not. You think it's harmless. You think, oh no, it's just entertainment. But remember, the brain, the mind doesn't know what's real from what's fake. It processes everything as real. I'll give you a small example that Chief used, and we've said this before, but I feel like it's pertinent to say it again, that if an example that he gave in one of his lectures was that if he had a bunch of puppies that were just sitting on a table, just frolicking around, and you pick one up, and you're petting it, and it's just making those little soft whimpering noises like, right? And it's all cute and cuddly and all that because people love puppies. But now you put the puppy down and then you take a big anvil or something that's very heavy and you place it over the top of him. And then you pull the pin and you let him be crushed. And all of a sudden you hear noises of some blood curdling noises, right? And the eyes start to roll on the side of the table and you see blood coming off the side of the table. And you see the little nails because now the pressure has just made their insides start to ooze out. And you'd be like, right? Even as one explaining that, it's like, oh my gosh, that is a tough sight to see. But then the question becomes, why would one cringe so much when it's not real? I'm just making this up. again, the mind doesn't know what's real from what's fake. It processes everything is real. So our hygiene begins with how we bathe the insides of our body's temple. Our hygiene is a product of what we ingest and allow ourselves to be surrounded with. Even what we ingest or what we call food, right? And if one has a steady diet of hot Cheetos and a steady diet of Coca-Cola and sodas, then now how are we bathing our insides? What are we saying that this is why it's so important? Why we start to look at, oh man, you know what? Or some people say you are what you eat. What are we ingesting on a day in and day out basis that ultimately now starts to have an effect on our high genes, right? Or what we're going to pass down from generation to generation. What are we going to start to do today that can start to break a cycle that ultimately is like, you know what? They cut the loaf. I'm going to ask why the loaf is being cut, because I don't want to, there's no need for me to waste good product. Which product is you? There's no need for you to waste your time here doing something that somebody else has been doing, when ultimately it's a cleansing of the insides of what you have ingested. So that therefore that skin tag that sits on top of that chromosome, that chromatin, can now start to be opened up so it can now take on or receive different information. Now, I think it's important, and again, all of these I'm coming from the New Way. If you don't know, this is the New Way, and I'm coming from the hygiene section. So that's what you're going to start to see as I'm putting these up on the screen. You can start to follow along, okay? If you want to go in there and read it. I'm taking out little snippets of it, but go in there and read the whole thing. All right, so our crystalline body can also be noxious. These must be the areas that we hygienically place our focus. So there's certain things that may not be correct because of what kind of Abba Raz Kush said, because of some of what are maybe, you know, there's that whole thing adage that people say, if you knew better, you do better, which some people, even though they know, they still don't do better. But nonetheless, if there's some things or some aspects of ourselves that can be changed because of what we have experienced from maybe our parents, maybe smoking or drinking when we were in the fetal stage, or maybe just being in an adverse situation or not getting the prenatal care. But now we can focus on that, making a change. We can focus on that by saying, okay, let me start to take in other information so that now that cell is not being squeezed, but it can be opened up so that now we can start to make movements in a different direction. We can start doing different things. But again, our bodies can become noxious. So these are the areas that we must hygienically place our focus on. Well, I got to say, okay, now there's some that I can't keep looking through the world through a trauma lens. I want to start to look at this through a more objective lens, which is now going to cause one to become more studious and more mindful of the things that they ingest and put in their mouths, more mindful of the things that the output that they make sure that if they have children or offspring, that I'm ingesting the right food. And I would certainly want them to ingest a loving mother and a loving father that now have care and respect for one another. Going back to the Bobo doll. All of that now can change. You can make that change today. These are things that can be done today. And it's right there in the New Way, and it's playing it out. You don't even need all of this scientific stuff, because nonetheless, it's already been broken down to you. You keep hearing that and hearing that, but it's like, do I really want that to sink in? Okay, well then let's do it, right? Let's do it. But again, you got to be willing to commit yourself and make a choice to take a chance. Take a choice to take a chance. I don't know what's going to happen, because people get so it's very convenient to be in a place or in an area where they think that all life is just always going to be like this. Again, going back to what Master Menelik said, it's easy to say it's the nature part, because I don't really want to make a change. That's just the way it's going to be, man. You know, like, this is the environment that I'm in, and this is just the way that this is what I came from. But nonetheless, I don't want to actually now put myself on the line, because I don't know what's going to happen if I do that. At least I know if I cut the ends off of this, I know what to expect. I don't know if I leave the ends on this. I don't know how this is going to cook. I don't know what's going to happen to me if I actually dive deep into the new way, if I actually commit myself to a community, if I commit myself to ALItes. I don't know what's going to happen with that. So I don't really want to put my focus there. Then if my focus isn't there, I know that if I'm around ALItes, then ultimately they're going to start pointing out some of these deficits, and it's going to start to backfire me, and I don't feel comfortable like that. Why are you pointing out certain things that I don't necessarily see in myself? But if I go around this community, they praise me for it. But if I come in the new way, if I come in the new community, then all of a sudden, y'all are pointing out things that I should actually be working on, and now I feel uncomfortable. Grow. That's what grow, right? It's just so good. It's good. All right. So now look, I just said a couple words, and these are all in the new glossary. So I want to make sure that everybody, we're all on the same page too. And alike is members of our community. And alike shares the same culture, behaviors, beliefs, and views. And this term is synonymous with kinship. It refers to those who match you in vision, words, mission. There's some more of it, and it was just too much that I can't. But I didn't feel like I needed to put it all, because you should go look. I know most of you are not. Okay, go look. These are people who share the same vision. So when people are sharing the same vision, or if you're sharing the same culture and behaviors, then somebody is able to point out to you, say, hey man, you falling off. Hey man, you effing up. Hey man, there's some stuff that you need to cleanse out of yourself, because you're moving wrong. You're moving wrong. Now, some people could start to say, hey man, that's just a product of my environment. Or hey man, that's just nurturing. I'm in nature. Or we can take the nurturing aspect and say, and that's what people get confused too with love. It's like, oh, well, if you love me, or if you would do this, then it would look like certain things. But that's just because one has been that motivation in motion. You've been going through the motions. We got to start breaking down some of this stuff. We got to start looking at some of this stuff so we can have healthier relationships, so we can have healthier families, so we can have healthier nations. Nation building is family building. And if we're not going to take a look at this and say, hold on, what are some of the things that my environment that need to ultimately change with me? So I'm not looking through things from a trauma lens, but I'm looking at things through an objective lens, so I don't get so reactionary or emotional and now I'm moving like a robot when somebody says, you should get mad at this. You should be happy about this. You don't get so caught up in that, because you get more so caught up in your own vision and in your own walk. But again, your ALItes you should be surrounding yourself with, okay? And then I think it's important now also say community, our fellow followers of the way. Come unity, the presence of an aggregate body of individuals on one accord is the requisite for the efficacy and serviceability of a community. One accord. So now it's like we're in harmony with one another. So if one of the genes or one of the chromatids or what if something ain't acting right and it begins to squeeze and constrict, there's now disharmony between the community. So now one has to now hold up, ease that pressure and ease that tension, because now it's not making a note. So if you had a guitar and you had the strings, and I don't play guitar, but nonetheless, I did substitute at a doggone in a class one time for music. had no clue what I was doing. But I know that something is off. All right. So whatever. But at any rate, while you're playing, right, and you might hear a note or a chord, and this is when you hear people start to adjust, and that needs to be tuned. Like, nah, that needs to be tuned because that note is not playing right. It's no different than one is in a community. One now might need to be fine-tuned because now that note might be off. Your note that you're coming in with, whoa. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but that's not along the lines of what we're doing here, man. Or you know what? It's about growth and evolution and evolving and going beyond what ultimately has been handed to us. So now when you get around people that share the same vision, your ALItes, and are fellow followers of the way, then now if this is the way that we're going to go to climb up this mountain, we got to start climbing. We got to start doing better to willfully start to change one's situations. Now, again, how do we start to change our situation and start to go? We're going to go back to that hygiene piece again, right? We're going to go back to that hygiene. And what is it? It's our spiritual fire is a purifier and detergent. The blaze that we generate from physical movement and a healthy metabolism rid our bodies virulent. That was an E, I think. Virulent. Yeah, it's the I is pronounced like an E. Toxins. All right, so ultimately, this is why now you start to see, even if one comes into the sponsorship, when they say, I want to join Anu, there's certain things, there's certain aspects that one would have to do to start looking like the person that's sponsoring. So there's a daily movement that needs to be done. And we always talk about that, and Aki Hamza will be the, my brother will tell you get money, right? He gets money while he's getting money. But nonetheless, doing 50 push-ups in a clip, doing 100, those are still being audited in a clip, right? But again, how are you treating this vessel that you have on a day in and day out? What is that spiritual fire that is ultimately going to be a purifier, that's going to keep you on with your air lights, that's going to keep you on the path, that's going to be the ablaze that we generate from physical movement? We move that. I knew is a movement. I knew it's going to grow. You're not just going to sit here and like, well, this is what I've always, okay, that's what you've always done. But now, do you want to expect the same results? That's what would be the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. How does one now start to take a look at this and say, in order for me to do something or go somewhere that I've never been, I have to do something that I've never done. In order for me to unlock a new door, I can't have an old set of keys. I cannot use the old set of keys that I've always had that I'm trying to unlock new doors with. In order for me to get through new doors, I'm going to have to expect myself to do new things. And now doing new things, that's going to cause one to feel the burn. It's going to cause one to go through, you know what? In order for me to start to lose weight, I might have to hit that Stairmaster. I'm going to feel it in my calves. I'm going to feel it in my lower back. I'm going to feel it in my doggone feet. I'm going to feel it everywhere that's going to start to push me, where everything in me is going to be like, quit. But I already know, what am I passing down from generation to generation? What ultimately is going to be the tag that I'm going to leave on my DNA that's going to be like, this is what you come from. This is the pedigree that you come from. This is the lineage that you come from. This is the bloodline that you come from. Am I going to now start to put that inside, or am I going to now lean on what was handed to me and say, you know what, that's just the way it is? What you going to do? You going to barbecue or you going to mildew? It's easy to quit. That's what everybody does. That's what they say, man. If it was so easy, everybody would be doing it. That's why we say in our new, we only want the special ones. We don't want somebody who's going to quit on you when all of a sudden it gets tough. We don't want somebody who's going to quit on you because now all of a sudden they heard something they didn't like. We know that we ultimately are we're growing. And if one is going to grow, then you're going to have to get pushed. You're going to get pushed.
I'm sorry. You just said barbecue or mildew?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What you gonna do? Barbecue or mildew? You gonna sit there or you gonna get on there and start flipping on the griddle?
I've never heard that term in my life. Since yesterday, I garage on my arm, which I don't think I should be saying on here.
Oh, yeah.
Learning all kind of new stuff today. You know, I'm being nurtured. Smart people.
Man. Yeah, that's all right. They get it. Everybody don't get it. We're gonna use some colloquialisms in here to get them more up to speed. But nonetheless, so we're gonna stay in the new way. And it says, keep your blood clean. Detoxify the liver often. When the blood is uncontaminated and flowing, the body has an opportunity, what it requires, and eliminate what need not be present. I'm telling you, I know you need a scientist to tell you. I know sometimes it's hard when you see a big black man standing in front of you. He can't, and that Willie Lynchism is gonna kick in. And it's hard to say, you know what, but I'm telling you now, the brother got some. He got some. It's all of this. You can go search for it, or you could just say, you know what, it's already been broken down. But again, study to show thyself approved. That's why I'm putting some of these videos up underneath this, so that you can see it for yourself, so that therefore now it's like, now then once you see that, then come back to the Anu way. And then you'll start to see for yourself, right? Now, one of the things that I like milk thistle for my liver, personally. But again, and one of those, I forgot which, there's a song that he did where at the end of it, speaks of the cleansing the blood. I don't know what it is. If somebody can remember it, just put it in the chat for me, please. But again, it's all going to be there to help you start to say, you know what? I'm going to start a lineage. I'm going to start a line. I'm going to start something where we start to move as a community and be around actual Aelites so that therefore we can grow and not start to repeat the same mistakes and not be the bottom or the laughing stock always at the bottom. But again, we got to take it down to the genetic cells. We got to take it back to breaking that cycle so that therefore we can begin anew. So this is good, man. I'm telling you. I don't know. Maybe it's all right. But again, clean your flesh with natural elements. If a cleansing product is not healthy to eat, we do not place the burden of consuming it with your skin. If you can't put it in your mouth, don't put it on your skin. That's a burden because ultimately it's going to be absorbed into the bloodstream. Now, I know what you watch and absorb, what you watch in the media starts to now, some people hate themselves. They hate the situation. They hate because their skin might be dark. They hate because their hair might be curly or nappy. So they start to put a little perm on it to try to straighten it out or flatten it out. If you can't put that in your mouth, do not put it on your skin. What creams are you starting to put on your skin? What are you doing on a day in and day out basis that ultimately is having an effect on your offspring and their offspring? Do you want to start to make a change today? Do you want to make better decisions today? Or do you still want to do the same thing and expect a different result? Again, the definition of insanity. What do you want to do? What are you choosing to be in this moment? What are you choosing to do in this moment? Power is in the moment. In this moment, you can start to make better decisions. In this moment, you can start to look for repentance. Like, hold on, man. I done screwed something up. I done did some certain things that I shouldn't be doing. I maybe not have been reading the way that I should have been reading. I shouldn't have been as studious as I should have been. I shouldn't have done. But again, you can start to do this right now. Right now. What are you choosing? Right now. I just really like this. I'm sorry. So again, be conscious to not surround yourself in a wandering space that brings nothing to your force and your body temple but noxious pulsation. Your right perfection and cleanliness extends to what you see and hear. This goes back to how are you entertaining yourself? What are some of the things that you are ingesting when you watch television or if you watch scrolling on social media that ultimately is programming you? Again, the mind doesn't know what's real from what's fake. It processes everything as real. So when you watch certain things on TV or when you watch certain things on your social media, and then you start to have certain implicit biases that you see in your real life and your day-to-day life that start, and you don't know where they come from, you have to be careful of what you allow yourself to see and hear. You have to be careful of how you have an interaction with your mate. Because ultimately, what are you allowing your offspring to see? That ultimately, do you want them to inherit the certain situations that you are now involved in? Or do you want them to do something better, which causes you now to make better decisions about your own actions? What are you doing? What are you allowing yourself to see and hear? That ultimately now you are going to allow somebody else to see and hear. Because now that's going to get passed down from them, from you to them, and then from them to their offspring. Do you want to start to break that cycle? Or do you want to start to still commit yourself to doing some of the garbage that you've been doing your entire life? That's a choice that you have today. This is a choice that you have today. Yeah. So again, be conscious. That's the 3 C's. You have to make a choice to take a chance or your life will never change. It will never change. You have to make a conscious choice. All right. Now, either I'm going to now still live out this thing that's just the nature of it, and that's just the way it is, because that's just the way I was programmed, or you're gonna start to look at these epigenetics, or you're gonna start to look at your hygiene and say, you know what, there's something that I can do about this to now break this cycle. But that has to be a conscious decision that you have to make. Some people were, that's like even in one of my favorite movies, The Matrix. Some people were born in Zion, while others had to get reprogrammed. Now, there was a certain thing that they said, though, we don't wake people up after a certain age. So now, mind you, it is important to show children certain aspects so that ultimately they don't have to fight the same fight that you're fighting. The whole thing about it is to make new mistakes, not to make the same mistakes that's been done already, and wondering why we ain't getting nowhere, wondering why we keep maintaining the same position in the new hospital and not moving from out of a bed to actually being a doctor or a nurse or a director, but ultimately getting just enough to get by and then put ourselves right back into the same comatose position, but putting ourselves back into the bed. Graduate from the bed. Let's move on from the bed and move on to a different space. But that choice is yours. And that's going to cause you sometimes to feel a burn. That's going to sometimes cause you to feel stretched. That's going to sometimes cause you to try to, you might see little dots in front of me, and I'm tired, man. I don't know. I don't know how I'm about to make it from point A to point B. But then you look to your left and your right and you see your A-likes and you say, I ain't going to quit on you, man. I ain't going to quit on you. Because this is bigger than me. This is about community. This is about how we all move. But again, I already know we're only as strong as the weakest link, and I'll be damned if I'm the weakest link. One has to get that in their head. One has to start seeing that. One has to start moving like that. But again, either you want to change or you just comfortable with where you at. But again, y'all keep hearing me saying you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Well, what does that mean? Let's get uncomfortable then. Let's push yourself then. You don't want to hear that, though. You don't want to hear that. The Kleenex extends to what you see and hear. I just want to hear. I just want to be a seer of it. I just want to be a hearer of it. I ain't actually going to do it. That causes me to actually commit. I'm turned. I don't know why. I'm lit. All right.
You're on the road, brother. Keep going.
Hey, I don't know why. I'm lit right now. All right. Now, when in doubt, what does someone start to look to? Because I don't know where to start. I haven't read or jumped into the new way. What am I supposed to be doing at this particular time in my life? Well, this is what it says right here in the new way, and we still have not left from hygiene. It is the laws of Yah that provide us a filter to know when we are intaking components that are deleterious to our well-being. And now you can't say saying I did not know is not an excuse. You cannot say that I was ignorance of the law is no excuse for what the situation that one is in or some of the practices they have taken on. I did not read that piece. I did not get that far. That is not an excuse. It's the law of Yah that provides us a filter. So you start to know, you know what, this doesn't line up with the law. This doesn't line up with the community that I'm in. This doesn't line up with my likes. Am I actually moving with something that ultimately a different society or a foreign cell that is ultimately I have let to somehow come inside of me and infest my thinking that starts to tell me I should do certain things. I should move a certain way. But it's cool with the outside community. But what is inside of the community that I have committed myself to? What does that say? What does that, if I have made a conscious decision to say that I am Yah, I'm looking at the light, I'm not going to lose focus of the light. And it provides a filter from that to understand that when people try to come and start to give you different shades of light, there's a sunlight, we spoke about this the last time, and then you got a bug zapper. And a moth still has not made a distinction between the bug zapper and the sunlight. Are you moving like the moth who still keeps being attracted to the doggone bug zapper and going to a certain culture that's a death culture that is ultimately just killing you? Or are you going to fixate your eyes on the law, Again, are you looking through a trauma lens or are you looking through an objective lens? I would like to coin that, but I can't. Chief said that yesterday in the men's call. I'm gonna just keep saying it. But I know Abba Harut, he gonna give it to me. So shouts out to you, Big Doc. You know what I'm saying? At any rate, the law is what's gonna help you to filter. Do you know the law? Are you living the law? Are you a breathing vessel of the law? That starts to say, hold on, man, this is not in alignment with my community. This is not in alignment with what we do. It's going to help you see that. It's going to help you start to move. It's going to help you start to make better decisions, and it'll help you start to move. It'll start to clean up down to a genetic level. Just by the small things, they're just real small changes that can be done and be implemented today. All right. But again, I'm gonna close out with this one. We're gonna go from James 1, verse 21 through 22 in the King James Version. It says, "Wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. Be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves." You have to be conscious and move through thought, speech, and action. It can't just be, I'm here and I'm listening. It can't just be, oh yeah, I read that, let's move on. It is a consistent, I'm going to live it, I'm going to breathe it, I'm going to do. That's why you see I'm going to live this thing, not just looking at it. And if you read on James, it's like somebody who looks in the mirror and then walks away and then forgets what they just saw, goes and does something totally different. Oh yeah, I don't remember what I looked like. You just saw it. Are you going to live it though? Are you going to now be a doer, so that therefore you changing on a genetic level and start to move and groove in a better situation? So that concludes my presentation today. I'm kind of sweating. I see a couple comments in here. All right, cool. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to add. If not, man, we can.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
All right, go ahead, Abba.
Yeah, you on a roll. And I like I like what you pulled from, and that comparison of, the hygiene, comparing, the cleanliness of our, of our genealogy, to our actual temple, how we maintain our temple.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of a saying I once heard, an elder, wise elder say. He said, cleanliness is next to godliness, and that stood out to me, and, I decided to even incorporate that into a teaching to my children, where we had that understanding, of, your temple, if we're royalty, then we should be treating our temple, and our royal, we should be treating our temple with respect, to bring honor, to that term of, royalty. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, that taking care of yourself, taking care of your vessel, taking care of your mind, all of those, taking care of your spirit, all of those things, have a very, very important result to manifest. You know what I mean? Into reality. You know, or what you don't manifest into reality. You know. So yeah, that really stood out to me, and you know, there's so many toxins, and you know, our environment. You know, the air is toxic. You know, with all these, you know, cars and fracking. You know, all the just spills. You know, oil spills, all kind of, you know, different spills, and them chemically experimenting, you know, with the earth and with, you know, different chemicals. You know, the water is polluted. You know, I had a water. I got curious one time years back when I first heard somebody talking about water, like, you know, the actual status of the water, like, you know. So I went and bought a water tester, you know, and I conducted a test on the water, and that water tester was able to find, if I remember correctly, about 70 different chemicals in the water. You know, I just remember those. You know,
you're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, pardon me. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now. You talking about water and the chemicals in the water.
Yeah, so the water tester, if I remember correctly, brought up about, it revealed about 70 different elements in the water. You know, and you know, I thought to myself, you know, when I was coming up, we used to always play outside. You know, and
Uh-oh. Your phone's breaking up again.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I might have to pull over today. Yeah, man. So all of those different elements in the water, you know what I mean, were placed inside of the water. You know, it's been chemically altered. You know, and I think about all those times I drunk out of the water hose when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and how that may have affected, you know, my temple. You know, how that might have affected, you know, my mind, you know, my brain. You know, so like there's all these different pollutants, you know, in our daily normal usage. You know, you don't have to go out of your way to find it, you know, and things have been made in a certain type of way, you know, to alter, you know, our genetics and alter our pathway, you know, of what we were actually created to do. You know, so it just brings to me the importance of, you know, following, you know, the righteous path, you know, the righteous pathway, because it's very easy to not, you know, to get off the path. It's very easy. There's things that are pulling you. You know, there's things that are constantly pulling you to get off the path. You know, so that that commitment and that focus and that, you know, that you have to look at it as like that is your vitality. You know, that is life. You know, that is life bringing. That is bringing life, you know, to your being and to your existence. You know what I mean? Is eating those things that bring forth life, because there's things that are killing you, you know, in your everyday surroundings. You know, so you know, that's just more we have to stress upon, like doing what's right. You know, you have to be even more forward thinking and even more, put even more pressure on yourself, because it's easy to fall off, So that just came to me, at a certain point which you were speaking. So give thanks.
Yeah, give thanks for the man. And when you were just speaking, it made me think of a couple things of when you was like, you make sure you look after the self and seeing what ultimately you're ingesting, what ultimately you are doing. And that reminded me of one of the things the chief has said, the greatest self-preservation is group preservation. Okay. I can't stress that enough. The greatest self-preservation.
Say it again.
Greatest self-preservation is group preservation. How are we preserving the group? It's not about what I want. This is what I want. I know we live in a society that speaks in, individuality. You be an individual. That's what they say. This is a community. That doesn't mean that you can't have your own thoughts. That doesn't mean, and that goes back to the question that, again, in the old segment that Chief done, in order to achieve unity, do we all have to do the same thing? No. You can still have unity, but still being like, these are certain things that I want to do. But again, I know I'm doing these in the for the group and the collective. Not because this is just what I want to do and this is just what I want. And YOLO, you only live once. And I'm just going to go and do what I feel like doing because I'm in the pursuit of happiness, but not the pursuit of peace. Chief spoke about this on the podcast the other day. I'm in the pursuit. Many want to pursue money, but they don't want to pursue wealth. Many want to pursue happiness, but they don't want to pursue peace. What does that now look like? What is peace? Why is happiness so transient? Because what makes you happy today might not necessarily make you happy tomorrow. So now it's ultimately something that you are chasing and striving after that ultimately is like it's a ghost. But it's certain buzzwords that a society has given one to say that now I'm now in motion. But what is the true motivation? I swear to goodness, I think that should be a prerequisite to everybody to listen to on the segment of motion versus motivation. Why are you doing the things that you are doing? If you think that, somehow I'm having my own thoughts and this is how I'm only thinking, are you sure about that? Look again, Negro. Look again. Do you really think that you're doing that and nobody else has done that? Do you really think that? Do you really think that you're being an individual? Do you really think that? Or has somebody already made it that way so you start walking this direction? One of the things in the old segment, a different one that Chief did was talking about when some people start to come into, now I'm going to be conscious about what I'm eating. So now you can go to aisle 5. I got all of the stuff in a brown box. I got all of the stuff that you say that now is vegan, that's gluten-free, that all of that, right over there. I'm just going to direct your attention to aisle 5. But again, you made these decisions though, right? You made it. Again, but I'm sitting there waiting on you. I'm waiting on you. I'm rubbing my hands. Yeah, come on. I already know you're going to do this. That's the way I set this up. I can make a lot of money off of broken families. I can make a lot of money off of broken people. I can make a lot of money off of now determining where somebody is going to start to move and what they're going to do 10, 20 years from now, just based on their upbringing of what it was like in their own family. I can start to look at all of that now. So now, what are we going to do now to start to make a change for tomorrow? But again, that starts with what we're doing right now and what we're doing today and how we are preserving ourselves, which ultimately will be shown how we preserve the group and our community and our allies and who we surround ourselves with and what we ingest on a day in and day out basis, of what we put on our skin and what we put in our hair and what we do and what we see on social media and the visions that we start to see, and even knowing that the mind doesn't know what's real from what's fake. So even if we start watching movies that starts to now create that implicit bias, as we said before, now where does that stuff start to come from? When you start to watch certain shows that start to show like the man being a babbling idiot, but then all of a sudden the woman is just strong and she's the one that brings all the law and doing all, what do you start to see that in your own relationship? One of my favorite movies is Forrest Gump. You can start to look at certain the melanin dominant people in that movie. Bubba Gump, big lip, dumb idiot, shrimp Creole, shrimp kebab, shrimp trio, shrimp this, and his mama before his mama was a shrimp captain, his mama before his mama, and his mama before his mama. That's all they did. Now, I can get caught in that because now ultimately it's just a matter of where are you at in your learning stage to now pull or you start looking at that and saying that's what is being rewarded and that's what's being shown, ultimately trying to create images in people's heads of what they can and cannot do. Are you going to now start to say, you know, I'm going to do something different? I'm going to do something different. I'm going to start watching some different stuff. I'm going to start to be around different people. I'm not just going to sit on the outsides and the outskirts and keep hearing the words and yeah, that's some good stuff. I'm going to be a doer, not just a hearer. I'm going to be a doer. I'm not just going to start deceiving your own self. How many times have you heard people in church environment or even here, you know, even in this environment, I'm here, ain't I? I mean, what do you want from me? I'm here. What? What's the problem? Don't be a deceiver of your own self. I mean, because ultimately you think you're hiding, but you're only hiding from yourself. People can see you. like that dude, Ray Caruth, who hid in his trunk. You got to be one of the stupidest dudes. Come on, man. We can see you. But do you think that other people now have not cleansed themselves enough where they're able to now see certain things? You can now gain discernment. You can gain discretion. But that comes with now a level of being able to sacrifice. There's certain things that I'm going to have to sacrifice in order to gain a better level of discernment for my own things that I'm doing and for the things that other people are doing around me. But that means that I'm going to have to cut some of this stuff out. I'm going to have to I might have to cut some of this sugar out. I might have to cut some of this media out. I might have to cut some of this stuff out so that therefore now when I revisit it after 30 days, or if I revisit it after 60 days, now I'm able to see it with a fresh set of eyes. Now I'm able to see it from an objective lens as opposed to a trauma lens that I'm just looking through and saying, yeah, there's a lot of sugar in here, man. What was I thinking 30 days ago? What was where was I at? You know, some certain people do that. Where if you look back in your own life and look at yourself 10 years from now, 10 years ago, like when you were, I don't know how old you are, you might be 18, so look at yourself when you were 8. If you're 28, look at yourself when you're 18. If you're 38, look at yourself when you were 28. And look at the person in that picture and be like, man, that person thought they had it all figured out. That person thought that, you know, man, I had all the answers, but man, where am I at now? So just imagine though, where you can be and what you can do if you start to make a change today and start to now ingest better information, sacrifice certain things, and start to move forward. Where will you be and where will your line be 10 from the next generation to the generation after that? The greatest self-preservation is group preservation. Are you thinking about the group doing the things that you're doing? Or are you only thinking about yourself? Yeah. So, all right. If anybody else wants to speak, please speak now. Or if not, then I will go ahead and close out.
Man, where to begin? I think one of the most pertinent things that stood out to me was the generations piece. Especially when you hear like in the earlier days when the Hebrews first left Egypt and they were given all of these sets of laws. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is how you eat. This is what you stay away from. And it said like several times, your iniquities will be visited upon your children, even to the 3rd and 4th generation. And it keeps being stressed to the 3rd and 4th generation. Like, what you're doing doesn't just affect you. You know, because typically that's like the main excuse for people to do stupid stuff. because you think it stops at you,
Right.
and it doesn't.
Right.
It affects everyone around you. Even if it doesn't affect them physically, they gotta be around you. So all the messed up stuff it does to you and your psyche, now it's their fault. Now they gotta suffer for it. I'm trying to sit on a flight, and I want the window seat, but now someone's 600 pounds sitting next to me, and I gotta be next to that for the whole flight. I'd be cool with it. So it's a lot of things that you do that affects the people around you that you don't notice. You could make a lot of arrogant statements. I see this all the time. People go on emotional tirades and forget everything they just said, but the people around them remember. And now it's like, now I'm holding it. Now you just gave it to me, and you just went on your merry way because you just vented, and you didn't even ask me if I'm open to being vented to. Now I'm holding on to all your trauma, and I know why you're acting up. But when I bring it back to you, you acting like you never told me. You never told on yourself. People know what you do. If they bring it up again, you're like, it's like Smokey from Friday. It's like, why are you bringing up old stuff? They don't care about how much of a burden they are to be around. It's just, well, you still here. Like Chief was saying, like, you going somewhere? If you ain't going somewhere, I don't care. Man. So it's a lot of that. And then even with the water piece that Abaras Kush was bringing up, I remember hearing somewhere, like, it was like some sort of saying, some proverb, but there was like, you can't wash dirty water. And I was like, well, about purification. It's like, yeah, but there's certain things in the water you're not going to scrub out because water has memory. So you start drinking the water, you get poisoned, you don't know why. It's just certain things that are in an environment that are being charged by your BS, and you don't realize it, whether it's your plants, your water, your animals, your children, your spouses, like you it's dripping off of you because you have poor hygiene and you don't want to take a bath. People keep telling you, take a shower. You stink. You just thinking up the room. It's like, no, I ain't. It's them. It's them. It's like, nah, you stink. Just take a shower. I'll just put on this deodorant. It's like you come off the basketball court and you come from playing sports, or you come from the gym and you don't want to take a shower. You'll just put on deodorant. Come on, come on, son. So everything you were touching on, like, I can tell why you get kind of, I don't know, you amped up today. But it's something that's, once you know, you gotta make that change. Like, if someone tells you that you smell that because you came from a gym and you refuse to take a shower, then there's something else going on. That's what I say about that.
Yeah, and even in the sense when you just spoke about, there's a couple things that it's all. Let me tell y'all, it's all there. It's all there. The habits, the haberdashery, the articles of clothing, or how we start to move with our own habits. Are we willing to go on a hike, go to the gym, and then somebody who maybe has cleansed themselves to smell you and say, hey man, you stink. Your habits stink. And then we wash ourselves or cleanse ourselves, and then able to smell those old habits or smell those old clothes or look at our old selves and like, you know what? It did stink. But again, you have to take off the garment that you have on now. And that's even going back to, again, that what we ingest piece and how we speak to each other and what are the things that we say, because even when you look at, there was a segment, I want to say Master Menelik shared it about that water, and there was the whole study of putting some rice and water. And there was 3 different cups. One of them was spoke to with positive affirmations. One of them was spoke to with negative affirmations, and one of them was just left alone. The one that was spoke to with positive affirmations ended up, I think it was after 30 days or 60 days or something, had a sweet smelling aroma to it. The one that was spoke to with negative affirmations had a dirty, cloudy looking color to it, and it had a negative smell to it. And the one that ultimately was left alone, so ultimately you didn't say negative, anything positive, and you didn't say anything negative, you just left it there, that still had a negative smell to it. So now you have to ask you, just because you walk away from something or you act like it doesn't exist, doesn't mean that it is just going to be fine. What are you doing? Be ye doers. What are you doing? Either you're going to start to do things that set things in motion to clean up the water, to clean up the generational line, to break generational curses, or you're going to live out these things and they're going to keep being lived out because you don't want to make a different decision. What are you doing? Be ye doers of the word, not hearers only. Deceiving your own selves. You're not deceiving anybody else. People can see you. You're only deceiving yourself. Be ye doers. Breaking generational curses, breaking generational cycles, cleaning up one's lineage, cleaning up one's bloodline, cleaning up one's hygiene. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. You already know we'll be right back next Sunday with a new topic, vibing on new things. Grow. I knew. Out.
Give thanks, brother. Peace, everyone.